Hello there, outliers, and welcome here as we come and play this game together in the Outliers Edge Roundtable. I am Niiamah Shang, and I'm really honored and pleased to be able to be in your space. Today, we have an incredible roundtable that's come together to share their experiences and to put it in a way that keeps it real with you, while also like continue to expand like what it takes to step up to your next level as they share what they did to step up in theirs. So without further ado, I'd love for you to get to know our esteemed guest here today. We're going to start off with Les, and then we're going to Russ, and then we're going to Dominique. Let's get us started, please. And,
Well,
like, let us know about you and the game you're playing.
sure. Hello, outliers. My name is Les. I'm a half of the duo of the Man Space podcast. Um, as we spoke about earlier, my part of the game is I do a lot of different things. I've worked in the voiceover field. I've had a t-shirt company. Um, I did photography and videography for a while. So I have a lot of little experiences that made a big gap. It filled a big gap in my life. Things that I like to do and I like to share. So whatever I can do, I just want to say hello and thank you for having me here.
Well, thanks for being here, Les. It's
Yeah.
good to spend time with you here. Russ, how about you?
Well, hello. I am Russ. I'm the other half of the Man Space podcast. For me, I am this is one of those things that kind of started off as a hobby that's kind of turned into a passion, which led into me getting into video production. So I started my own side video production company. I started a podcast. Production company as well called the Empowerment Podcast Network. My video production company is uh, TMSP Media, which we are in the process of launching and branching out. So that's my world of how I turned something as a hobby into something I actually loved and grew from there.
I'm glad you're bringing this in here, Russ. You're planting some seeds as to where we may go in this conversation. So I appreciate that. And Dominique.
I would love to tag along that lines as well. I found passion and love for myself and love for life, and it grew into this business called Shadow Spiritual Guidance, where
Mm,
I use that love that I found and my experiences and my voice to branch out, to spread what I found so much joy in. And I host a podcast called the Growing Full Circle Podcast, which is extension of that. I have a platform, a community where I am building something where I want people to be free in a space where they can be open and have a non-judgmental area to express themselves and be spiritual and get information about their journey and different modalities and share. And me being here again is just another part of using that voice and my experience to share that love and that peace. So
mhm.
I'm glad to be here.
All right. Well, I see all of y'all. Y'all seem like you have uh, a place that you all come from, and so I love to explore that and play it as we come into this conversation. So, look, we talk about being outliers here and owning what it is to be an outlier for you. And so, what like part of what I'm hearing is that both like all of y'all started with something and then
Mm,
allowed that to evolve into something else, right?
right, right.
Like help me see it because there's a lot of outliers that are out here that are like like maybe I have something to say. Who would want to listen to me? And y'all have gone beyond like, oh, let's take that and like create a podcast out of it. But you're like, let's get paid. Let's make let's take some of the things that we're learning in this space and transform that into something greater. So Russ, I think I'd like to start with you, then I'll go to
Yeah.
Les on this one. But like tell me about your experience with that. Like where were you at before all of this? What were you doing? And like tell me about like the transition to come in.
So my 9 to 5 world, I was a network engineer. I still am on my 9 to 5 world. I'm a network engineer. This was something getting into podcasting for me was because I wanted to do radio many years ago. So I was in school for broadcast communications and learning that and a lot of twists and turns led me through the military into network engineering. And I and honestly, and I will tell you the 100% truth of how this whole thing started. I was sitting in church and I heard a voice say, "Do your show now." And I'm looking around to see who said it. And my wife is paying attention to the pastor. The pastor's up to talking, and nobody else is talking other than some random amens. And then I heard it again. It said that you'll help more people by doing your show than being in a pulpit. And so I spent the rest of service writing down names of shows, topics, just different little formats. I went from there and I wrote down a handful of people that I could work with because I didn't want to do the show by myself. This was the first person I called, and my buddy Les. And I called him. We talked on the phone for an hour. I sat in my driveway, in my truck, in the rain, and we talked on the phone for an hour. 2 days later, we recorded our first episode. The next week, that episode was on the air. So that's just kind of how the journey went. And I tell you, that first episode, I thought the production quality of it was terrible. It absolutely was. But the content was good and it was entertaining. And I think 7 people listened to it, and I was probably 6 of them. But it just went from there. And it was one of those things, like, I didn't really worry about how many people was listening in the beginning, because when you start doing that, you can easily get discouraged and realize, man, I should have way more listeners. Why does this person get all this many listeners and I don't? No, what really got me was I got a letter from somebody who listened, and we try to close out every show with some sort of inspiration. And some episodes we're just flowing. Like we get on, I'm like, Les, I don't have a topic. And so we just have a random conversation, and that's just the whole episode.
Yeah.
But we end up with some sort of inspiration at the end and some sort of motivation at the end. And it took us a minute to get to where that started to flow right. And I got this random email from somebody who said, "You just don't know how much your episode helped me." And from there, it didn't matter how many people listened. If one person listened and caught what we were trying to, and we were able to help that one person, then we did our jobs.
But I like this here. Like, I'm going to call out a couple things here. So I speak to outliers as we do this, because we're not passive in this here. This is an active podcast. It's just we're all part of the conversation. And we also move from being consumers to creators all the time here, right?
Right.
So outliers, like some of the things I that really stuck out to me, Russ, was your speed of implementation. Right. I'm gonna use that word there, big old thing, speed of implementation.
Yeah.
But like for me, it's like, boom, you're sitting in church, you hear the voice, you're not like, I'm not gonna sit on this for a week and then see. You're like, during the sermon, like you're like, this is happening before I leave, before I go and shake hands, get my water, like all that stuff. Like before, like I'm gonna map out some of this, right? From there, like you made the call to Les. A couple, like from there, 2 days later, you recorded. Within a week, the episode is live. I want to just kind of call in that space there, outliers, where it's like, how many ideas have you had that were pretty good ideas that you let just sit? That you let just sit. And if you had only leaned into it and said, right now, I'm going to move this forward in a little bit, and within a week, I'm just going to get it out there. You said like the production value wasn't very high, but now both of y'all have production companies, so like that goes to say something here, right? Alice, how many things right now are you sitting on right now when the real thing is like, now is the time, get it out there, get something moving, get something out in the world there. Les, I'm curious for you, like this is like Russ was like, I feel that like Russ is like, hey, look, I was moving this ball down. What was it like for you? And then Dominique, I want to see how it was when you got started.
Well, for me, it was, I've had some other journeys before, and some I've waited, I've slipped, and I felt that this was the right journey for me at the time. He gave me a call and I was down from the moment that he asked.
Absolutely.
And I didn't care what it was or what we were going to be talking about. I just felt the need to have myself in that place as well. So I didn't sit back either.
Mhm.
I pushed forward. We brainstormed. We came up with ideas. We were still in idea stage for months after we've gotten started,
Yeah.
you know, but we never stopped. We continued to push through this thing. And like, I don't know how else to say it other than we have chemistry,
Yeah.
right? That we can come into a show with no topic and create as we go along, you know, and that to me means more than anything. How many people do you know has been weekly through a
Weekly.
journey for 5 years
Mhm.
with the same guy? We're lasting longer than some marriages.
I tell my wife all the time, Les is my second longest relationship right now.
I'm not telling my wife that. Might
So-
not see me next week, bro.
You know,
But that's
I-
a lot of who we are right here.
Yeah.
That was a part of our playing off of each other,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know. But
Well,
I'm sorry.
No, you don't, please, in my space, no. The only time you need to apologize is if you accidentally punch me in the face. Other than that, be you, right? But a couple things here. And then Dominique, I want to hear from you on this. But like I was down from the moment that he asked, right? What
Mhm.
caught me about that was the invitation, right? And so,
Mhm.
Alex, I'm coming back to you. Whereabouts are there invitations that you're not asking, right? If Russ didn't come to Less, y'all will be doing something else. You'll be on different journeys.
Yeah.
The journeys would just
Yeah.
5 years would have gone by, and
Mhm.
y'all been doing different things, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And so, like, Alex, just want to call you in right now. Like, what's that thing that might be like? It's like all that is necessary is providing someone an ask, and then on your end, Les, what I'm getting from you is like, it's like, wow, what a great invitation. I'm in. I don't know what this is. Let's get started. Months later, still don't know what this is, but I'm glad that we're doing it.
Right.
And I think I really want to call that in the space here as we go on. I also want to also bring in this other last element here right now around creating as you're going. Right? And when I hear that, I was hearing self-trust. You know,
Mhm.
I was hearing both self-trust and allowing yourself to be messy. We don't know what the topic is.
Mhm.
Both messy and authentic, honest,
Mhm.
right? There isn't the hiding of like, or like the posturing as though like everything. It's like, we're just going to talk. And in real
Yeah.
time, we're going to let the
Yeah.
magic come in and
Right.
go from there. So I see
Yeah.
y'all. I see y'all. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Dominique, curious about you, how things get started for you. How do you think through things? What, like, and if there's something else that's really popping off for you, like, feel free to bring it into the mix.
Yes, I'm truly resonating with the conversation. It's flowing for me in that way. Um, for me getting started, it was resistance. It was me resisting what I was already hearing. As you mentioned before, how many times have we been called to something and we did the opposite, or we didn't do it, when we heard that call. And as I was going through the journey of growth, I wasn't naturally a person who used my voice. I was naturally reserved, naturally to myself. But I found such love and joy through my connection with God, and just living through intuition. It was that voice that called me to be a leader, to use that voice. And when I started to do that, I noticed the community and the people who would gravitate me and reciprocate that love that I was given, and it lit my soul up. It lit my joy and my passion and fire to do more and to live in that voice that I was hearing within inside of me. And doing that completely changed my life. That's how my podcast started. That's how I began to expand and grow within my business. I, as Rush, you were eloquently putting, that one viewer, that those messages of just one person that says, what you said to me really helped me get through the day or through the moment. um those, like, knowing that those people exist, or like if I host an event, I also do online and in-person events, like guided meditations, helping people with mindfulness. And often I'm in those rooms by myself, but I had to learn that those were the things for me that I did out of joy when I was alone, and just doing it for my own growth. And when I do have a room full of people, it still feels the same way, but there's so much energy and love in it. And when there's just one person, I still feel that same energy and love. So it never mattered the numbers and how much money things bring in. For me, it's all about that message and purpose, and just having that experience and joy to live this life. And that's what I'm doing, finding joy and living this life.
So you said
That's
one of
awesome.
the special words for me, which is joy here. So I like to play in that. So all of y'all have businesses, and I think I want to go down this route in particular. Like I want to keep exploring like the outlier in you as you do it. Um, so I think the question for me right now is um, when you get into I'll start off broad and then we'll get more specific as it goes along, right? So the broad question here comes down to like, given like who you are and the experiences that you have here, what's one area in your business that you have found a way to like incorporate something that just works for you, right? And when I say just works, I don't mean like you're the only person who can make it work, but it's like it's something where it's like, all right, you know what? Most other people may not do it, but like when it comes to me, like this is it. Like I'm even hearing like you two, you're like, we just hit record. We're like
Right.
we're gonna just go from that.
Yeah.
Like, can you talk if you bring it into your business here a bit here? I want to try and see some of the ways that you like you do things you do things differently.
Well, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. I was going to follow along that lines as well, because just as you both mentioned, just hitting the record button, that's
Mm,
what I found to be comfortable for me. Um, getting into a space where I'm comfortable and I know what I want to talk about and have a subject matter or a thought, and just allowing that to flow and be authentic, and letting that be the material and the content. And I'm finding that to be very joyous within, my experience of producing content and,
mm,
and having the podcast. So when you Russ and Les, when you mentioned it, that's a part of the conversation I was really
mm.
resonating with, just that connectiveness of having that creative process, because I feel the same.
Yeah. And for me, I think it's just my biggest thing is just getting started, right? Is the go button.
Mm,
Don't don't wait.
Mhm.
If you don't pass go, you don't get a $200.
Right.
Okay. So you have to get started where you are. Don't look at YouTube and all these things that I need this. If you're getting in the apparel business or the
Mm,
photography business or the videography business, don't get online and wish or wait till you get that equipment. Start with what you have. Learn what you have, learn the process, and then as you get better, bigger, you can upgrade and you can move forward. I had to learn that myself when I started our t-shirt business, right? I wanted to jump right in and get the biggest and baddest things. Then you find yourself in debt because you go out there and you go buy it. Your
mhm,
business isn't making money, you know, but you still got to pay the bills on top of your home bills,
mhm.
right? Get started where you are. Learn, grow, reinvest. Learn, grow, reinvest.
so
But get
let's
started first.
I'm with you now. And I think a part of it, like, well, like if I'm really honest, like the getting started thing, I think what happens is like I'm the first generation from Ghana. My parents from Ghana,
Mhm.
and so
Mm,
a lot of things I didn't know. There was like people didn't like lay it out. Like we were all figuring it out.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so I think I have a higher threshold than others to like make a fool of myself because I've made a fool of myself, or to do things without being in the knowing, right? So when I
Right,
hear what you're saying right now, Les, I'm like, yes, I'm all in, obviously. And then I'm thinking to myself, there are outliers out there who, again, now they're like, well, I could do that. I could take those risks. I could get started like right there. And this might not be getting started from the
mm,
beginning, right?
mhm,
Like now we're talking about how do I have an opportunity to, expand my locations from 1 to 7. Do I do it or
right.
do I not?
right.
Like have I, oh, maybe I've only ever been a solopreneur. Like, do I start hiring people now or what,
Mhm.
So I'm curious how you would address that when someone is in this space of like this, I think this needs to be right before I go into it. Can you speak to that? And I'd like to open it up for everyone.
Yeah. Well, in my case, I would have to balance that out. You
Mm,
really have to look at where you are in business and where you want to be. Okay. You may not be able to get to where you want to be right away. So baby steps may be needed. Instead of you need three people, but one could help you out tremendously and turn production around. Okay. While you're while you're hiring and growing, you can bring on more people, but you have to have a constant roadmap to where you want to go, right? And you got to put things and put things in perspective. Okay, if I'm only making $100, I can't pay somebody $20 to make this. I have to absorb some more, relieve some costs somewhere. You have to look at your bottom line and you have to make it make sense. As my mother always tells me, make it make sense. If you're going to do something, it has to make sense, not just for you, but for your business first. Because my business is my entity, right? I have to make it make sense for it, even if I don't like it. What makes sense for the business is where we go. We have to make those things work, but you have to sit down and you're not going to like every discussion. You're going to not like every thought. You're not going to like everything that comes from it, but you have to deal. The road to success is a bumpy road and curvy. It's not straight.
Russ, Dominique, what you got for this?
So I'll say that when you're trying to get into whatever field and whatever it's when you're finding something that you're passionate about, something that you're good at, something that makes you happy, you tend to stick with it a lot longer than you will if it's something that you're not really good at, or if it's something you not don't really like, or you're just doing something just to do something. Because a lot of times we get presented with opportunities out there, and yeah, I'm not really into this, but I'll do it because it's a little extra, it's a few extra dollars. If it's something that you're passionate about, it makes it a lot easier to go down those paths. And the biggest thing is that, yeah, God wants us blessed, but God also wants us to use wisdom. To go back to what Les was saying, with wisdom, you know, that's, hey, I don't need to expand to 7 stores right now, because wisdom says I'm gonna fail if I go out to 7 right now.
That's
Maybe I
right.
go to 2 and I see how 2 works. And then I see if I get an opportunity to go to 3. But let's do it, and do it in steps, because a lot of times for us, especially when you look at celebrities and you look at the Elon Musk and you look at the Bill Gates and all those people, you see the end journey.
Mhm.
You don't see the beginning of the process and all the steps. And so many times we don't want to go through the steps. We just want to get to the end.
Yeah.
So if you're doing something that you're passionate about, you're more willing to go through the steps along the way to get to the end journey. And the really thing is, man, it's about enjoying the journey along the way, because everything that you get at the end is way more rewarding than it would have been if you skip steps.
Right.
Dominique, curious what you got on this?
Yeah, the two words that come up for me is purpose and perspective.
Yeah.
With purpose, in our analogy, when we're thinking about business, identifying, as Russ said, that what you want to do is going to give you that more energy. So as we're talking about purpose within your business and making a change, I would suggest always taking those moments and that time to evaluate your purpose on making that move. If you need to hire an employee, understand, the purpose behind it. Don't just think, okay, an extra hand will be nice for me. It's more beneficial with a deeper understanding of how is that person going to improve your business as a whole, and not just offer you a helping hand on the day to day. It's that sort of depth when it comes to thinking about purpose. And with perspective, it allows us to come to realizations about reality and being able to view outside of ourselves. So a lot of times in business, we have failures. We have
Dominique,
things.
would you do me a favor as you're talking? Can you make this real? Like, tell me about one of your favorites you go, one of your favorites you go through, and I'll come back with y'all in the same way because it ends up being like
Yes.
I can relate so much more if I'm like, tell me, like, just bring me to it. Like,
Yes.
all right,
So yes, within I don't even want to use the word failures. In business, we all grow. We try to understand what we're trying to bring to our audience, to the world. And for me, it the thing I started with was life coaching, and trying to understand the space of being a life coach, and being that support system for someone. And the one thing that I heard as far as advice was niche down, niche down, niche down. And someone starting out not really understanding what I wanted to offer as services, it took an extremely long time to niche down. Especially when I wasn't in the business to be in business. I was in the business as a means to achieve my purpose of, love and peace in that way. So for me, it took a while to get past the understanding of acting out of the need for money when I am looking for just purpose and the things that I enjoy. Having to have the need of survivability of, making sure that you have a certain amount of clients so you can, have your grocery bill, those things that come with having a business takes the time to grow and see how your life changes and mesh as you incorporate your business, and have that perspective of growth within that. And back to the things with growing with that. I don't want to spend too much on it, but as you think about growth and viewing, like as I mentioned within myself, having to niche down, it took me, I was honestly just recently, to me to feel comfortable to be able to say, these are the services that I offer in a way where I'm comfortable with it for the rest of my life in that way. Because I didn't want to get into a business to get money or to have this success, because I've, for me, I've already found that with my love of my family and the joy that I already have in life. No business or job can ever fulfill me in that way. So I already have success in life. So anything on that was just going to have to fit and be a part of my life. So me stepping out and being an entrepreneur outside of, a 9 to 5 professional business, having to grow within that and understanding how that fit in my life, it just takes a lot of growth. So that would be my advice for anyone trying to make a change. Just be patient with yourself, understanding of different perspectives, and always have that identity and that purpose within your actions.
I like
yeah,
the way Dominic said niche down, because
Yeah, yeah,
not everybody can be Walmart.
right.
You know, you have to have a specialty in some kind of way, because people do still shop at specialty stores. And
Mhm.
if you are, you have to be an expert in something to get people to come to you, right?
Yes.
So whatever that one thing is, you niche down to that one thing, and that's that's where you go. And then as you start coming, your clientele start coming and say, "Well, do you do this?" Yeah, yeah, I do. I'm into that too. Yeah, I do a little bit of that too.
Mhm.
And then you can start expanding out into other fields, because that's how you start to grow. But in the beginning, you be a specialist in one thing.
can I ask about
Yeah.
this because this is actually like this is I love when people bring up Nishan on the Outliers Edge podcast because it goes so many different ways, right? And y'all, let's just jam on this one here, right?
Yeah.
There's no right,
Mhm.
no wrong, but I want to just jam. So I'll play on this side here, which is like one of the most frustrating things I have found as an outlier has been when someone says those two words, niche down, uh,
Mhm.
because I'm like, I thought I was niche. Well, you got to choose your avatar. I thought I just told you who my avatar was. Well, you got to choose
Mhm.
your avatar. And, several different times I found myself like just being like frustrated because I'm like, is it just that you're not my avatar? Is it like, or is it like, is there something else that's been going on? And I think that like, I want to speak to that. I want to bring that into this space here because like, the people listening to this, they're multi-talented, multi-passionate. Les, when you're like photography and this and this, I was like, here's an outlier. I got it. Like, like you can't just pin them down in one thing, you know?
Right.
And so like I am that being said, like I know like for me at least at this point, like my niche is outliers. Right. And there's different I've learned there's like difference between how do you market to people, what you say what you're marketing versus what you're doing. It's just, there's those kinds of elements there. But I did want to speak to that, to the outlier, to the other Niiamah out there, who's listening to this and is like, I'm at the I think it's like I'm at the beginning of my journey. How do I even know what my niche is just yet? Right? How do I even know? Because I don't even know what I don't know
Yeah.
about this whole thing. So I'm curious about y'all, like if like even if like man space came in on like day one, you're like pulpit man space. That's exactly what it's gonna be like. And there's something here that's flowing out. I just want to just get your thoughts on it.
So here's the thing is, and one of the things that we had to learn, and yeah, we created a show, The Man Space. The man's by title alone, we've just eliminated all the women,
Yeah.
right?
Immediately.
But we found that there's more women that listen to our show than men.
Yeah.
So, but just by title, we said, hey, we're targeting men just by this. You got to realize that you can't be for everybody.
Yeah.
And and that's when it really comes down to your niche and finding what you're good at. When we talked about our first few episodes of just the show, not being production quality was not very good. We were kind of all over the place with our first few episodes, and
Yeah.
and we weren't really targeting anything. So if you don't have a specific niche, people are not going to stick with you, right?
Mhm.
Because we weren't experts in anything that we were really talking about.
Still not.
True. But then when we started to be more organic and
Mhm.
focus on life and how things relate to us,
Yeah.
that's when we started to grow, and
Mhm.
it started to show more of our chemistry. So when we talk about niching down, it's about finding what you are good at.
Yeah.
Something that makes you happy. If you sit there and do nothing but make cupcakes, and and everybody says these are the best cupcakes, then you make cupcakes. You don't
Keep
make
making
donuts.
cupcakes.
You
That's
make
right.
cupcakes, and you
Yeah.
focus on cupcakes.
That's it.
And then if you want to dabble out after a little while, then you dabble out and you say, well, yeah, you know what? I do cupcakes and I do birthday cakes on top
Right.
of it. And I may throw in a apple fritter. We like to relate stuff to food on our show a lot. So,
Yes.
but,
Yes.
but you may throw in an apple fritter every now and then. But you start with something that you're really good at, and
Mhm.
that's what you focus on,
See,
right?
like as I'm hearing y'all talk here, as I'm hearing you talk right now, Russ, what it sounds like to me, and I'd love to like to push back on this here, but it sounds to me like as much as your niche is like on in one level, like man space, this is what we're going to be talking about. This is how we're going to be talking about it.
Mm,
Um, when you brought up like most of your listeners were women, it made my head tilt. I was like,
mm,
oh, I love that, right?
yeah.
Like wait, man space, majority of women are majority of listeners are women.
Mhm,
Interesting question mark.
mhm,
I get curious about that.
yeah.
And then as time went on, and you even all the way down to the apple fritter, right?
Mm,
What it felt like to me was like it's like, oh, you created a niche of you, right?
yeah.
Where it's like if you want a space where we're like predominantly talking about things like we're men, we're gonna be talking about the things that are happening in our life, coming
Mm,
from our experiences. We talk about food like in analogies and this, that,
right.
and the other. And if that's for you, this is where it's happening. You
That's
This
know?
is
it.
a safe space.
Yeah,
That's it.
This is
yeah,
for you.
yeah.
You
Mhm,
know. You
I,
know.
I feel like that feels different than like my niche is men, you know,
right.
like so
Right.
like does that is like what do
Yeah.
you do you catch that? What do y'all see in it? And Dominic, I see you here too. So
Yeah. Well, that's kind of how we discussed it. It was the man space, but not really just for men,
Mhm,
right? We want to address the group, everyone, but
mhm,
we only pull from our examples from each other,
right.
right? Because that's the only way you can be authentic about it.
Mhm,
Okay. I can only tell you what I know and what I went through and how I dealt with it,
mhm,
you know? And that is where that's where we shine at. That's our piece. We talk about food because we both like to eat. He's more foodie than I am.
Yeah.
But I'm a barbecuer. So see, we have these, we have those things.
Dominique and I are like, we would need to come over to like a space retreat sometime soon.
But see, we also we talk about relationships. We talk about marriages. We talk about finances. We talk, but we're talking about it. Yes. Yeah, we're talking about all these things from a male perspective. And then we will pull in an expert every now and then to say, hey, we've gotten this far. Can you come in and help us get over the edge? And a lot of times when we're talking about that, most of our listeners are women, is because they want to know the male perspective on things. Because a lot of times we're talking about the struggles that men have in trying to open up and communicate on different things. And so they're like, why does my husband not talk to me? So they tune into our show and they hear some of the things that we talk about. And they're like, oh, okay.
Or we might specifically address those things.
Interesting.
You know.
Interesting.
So
let me bring Dominique in here because what's popping off for you with this, Dominique?
Man, it's a lot of things around this topic. First, I also had a similar experience. I started this. It's a meetup group, and it began targeting just only Black men. I wanted a space where I could speak to Black men. We could talk. We have a space that's non-judgmental, and really have those discussions about things that we want, our issues, the whole nine. And even that journey started because I wanted that growth within myself, because in my life I never had that space. I grew up with that absent father, didn't have anyone who I could speak to about man things in that way. So I always had a perspective of competition when it came to men. And as I grew up, I had to learn how to grow out of that because I didn't want that a part of my character, and I had to learn to love, my fellow men and in turn love myself in that. So I tried to have this group. And what I found was when I created it, a bunch of women joined. And I was confused because I wanted it to be a space, for Black men, but I didn't want to exclude them. Like I attribute profound growth within myself for thanks to all the Black women that I've grown up with and in my life. So it was something that, I was open to, and I even reached out to a bunch of Black men and, asked for their opinion, and I got a mixed bag. And I eventually decided, to open up the group to everyone. And it never clicked again after that, because I think what I had learned was that the women wanted to hear specifically from the men, even though they wanted to be in that space and they were there they asked questions, but they wanted it to be a space for men and not a space for everyone. That's kind of what I learned from that experience a bit. But it's not the end for me. I'm still growing and still trying to create spaces for men to have those conversations. So I'm loving what I'm hearing about the Man Space podcast. So it's great to have this conversation. But yeah, just being in a space to build community is what I wanted to do, and having a podcast and what you both are doing with your podcast is admirable.
Thank you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks for playing the niche game with me. I'm gonna play this.
Oh, I'm sorry. Before we get too far from the niche, I just wanted to touch on one thing about niche, because I know we're talking about niching with audience and our targets. But for me, I'm learning that like my subject matter isn't niche for a specific group, but what I'm learning is that one of my biggest weaknesses is marketing. Like I don't actively kind of push myself out there. I kind of let things attract to me that way. But in terms of business, you do have to put some inspired action into getting the message out there, because who's going to know what you're doing if it's never seen? So part of me understanding my niche is understanding that target audience who actually is looking for my services, or who wants it, or who is asking questions that that I'm offering, answers to or advice on. So that's the niche part that I'm learning on who to market and target to in order to get the maximum value of my voice and my experiences.
So
Awesome.
I want to tag on to that before you move on, but we when we were probably about 3 years into the show, you know, I started a cologne line for men from that was dedicated from the man space. So it was called Fire by the man
By
space.
the
Then we
man
did a
space.
women's line, and it was Desire by the
Desire.
man space,
Yeah.
and it was selling, you know. And then we did some T-shirts and things like that. But then the number of people that were like that actually knew me and was like, "Oh, you do cologne? Oh, you got a I didn't know you had a podcast." I'm like, "I've been doing it for years." And you didn't know. And it was one of those things like, what good is doing all those things if nobody can find you?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so it made me realize, okay, let me scale this back
Mhm.
and start working on other things, because now I need to get it to where more people see the brand
Yeah.
and
Recognize it.
recognize that brand, recognize that logo. Because yeah, we found that, hey, there's other shows out there that are jumping on our name,
Yeah.
and people are confusing us with this show and confusing us with that guy. And I'm like, no, we're not them. So we need to focus on our brand, and then let's go back out and start adding these other things in. So our growth has been purely organic at this point.
Mhm.
But yeah, you have to get into a spot where you have to market to people to get out there and get your name out there. You can't just rely on word of mouth. You have to do shows like this to
To
expand
show.
your brand
Yeah.
and things like that. Because if you don't, nobody's going to find you. Nobody's going to know.
Mhm.
And when you got people that even within your own family that don't know that you have a show, and it's like, wait a minute, I've been doing this for years. Oh, I didn't know you did cologne. Oh, I didn't know you did this. I didn't.
Yeah.
Nobody knows. A closed mouth doesn't get fed.
Doesn't get it.
So you have to be able to market.
Yeah. One more thing, and then I'm going to leave it completely alone.
All
Okay.
right.
But with this conversation that we're going through right now, I feel that the urge to just go ahead and just say this. I am going through a restructure right now, right? Because I'm bringing my niches down with all these other things that I'm doing. So I've shut down everything, and I'm going to retool and relaunch and and grow again, because my business, my apparel business was all word of mouth. We've done stuff for Fortune 500 companies. We've done stuff for the neighbor. Okay. But I want to consistently be able to deliver that product to everyone that comes across me. Right. So that's the reason why I'm retooling everything, bringing it all down and relaunching in 2025.
Yeah, so there's a element here. I'm glad you brought that in, Les. Like, we're gonna start wrapping up the conversation overall, but like, I'm enjoying it, y'all. So like, I'm like, ah. So here goes the thing that's playing out. I just want to call in because I recognize that if I don't say this, I think I'll be stepping away from my own leadership and what's authentic to me, which is the idea of like, um, you talked about retooling and bringing
Mhm.
everything down. Russ, you talked about like going and be like, I'm gonna bring it back. You said things that I pulled it back. And both of them, I felt like I had like a visceral reaction to it. Maybe because right now I feel like I'm going hard, you know, and at the same time, I'm like, man, this is hard going, um, not from the standpoint of the work itself. I'm enjoying the work. I
Mhm.
love having a podcast. I love the coaching that comes from it, the communities, the connections, all that. Right. But there's another side of it, which is just like, oh, for what I'm building, it grew too fast in a sense, like
Mhm.
the systems don't support
Right.
everything that's there,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
And so I like, well, this will be the last question that we bring in before our wrap up question. So probably spend about like 2 minutes, 3 minutes on this here. But I'm curious about how y'all like, and this goes for all of us, like how y'all like allow yourself to go in and like slow down, pull it back, so on and so forth. Let's like, I got all these businesses going on, but like, I'm actually like bringing them down and retooling and going. Because there's a part of me that's like, realistically, I'm like, oh, it's starting to work and I like it. And it's just like, I just forgot to do this thing because I didn't forget. I just didn't know that this thing was going to be absolutely necessary when I
Yeah.
got into it. And now I'm like a month behind. Like, like it's gonna be until a month from now before I can actually address it. So I'll be kind of curious from you. I'm not kind of, I'm very curious about like how y'all think about it. Let me start off with Dominique and then I want to go to you two here and then we'll
Okay.
wrap up.
Yeah. I think I do a pretty good job of not going too overboard. I'm usually kind of moving at a slow pace, maybe to my detriment, but when I
Mm,
do get overboard, it's usually because I just get really anxious and excited about something that I'm creating, and I'll just put it out in the air and in the universe a little prematurely sometimes, and life kind of happens and changes, and you have to push things back. But I've learned to not have so much burden on myself, and so much weight on myself to do those things, and to just be light and authentic, and be open with my communication. So if I promise something someone was expecting, I just say, hey, it didn't happen, but I'm still always working to get things there. And yeah, just try to do my best to be calm, stay in moments, and not exert myself too much, and always listen to that intuition.
a genuine thanks to Dominic. I'll share why in just a bit, but Russ Less, anything you got on this?
Well, for me, it's about the reputation and the brand, right? I don't want to damage it. I'd rather slow down and pull back than go full speed ahead and not be able to fulfill orders or give incorrect orders and things of that nature. So I want to pull back, get everything in line where I need it to be so I can move faster and I can fulfill more and I can do more, right? So I had to slow myself down because, like you said, I have my hands kind of like a little octopus, right? I'm over here doing this, I'm over here doing that, I'm here doing this with my bro. I got something I got to do in about 15, 20 minutes, you know, and I've gotten myself into where there's no slowdown. It's all about let's go, 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 go. But I'm forgetting something.
Yep.
You know, I can't do that. So I have to pull it back, slow it down, and put the things in the avenues where they need to be. Okay. Because in the long run, it does nothing but help me.
Mm. I Les really stole my thunder on that one because that's kind of the direction I was going to go with it. Is a lot of times we've all heard that you got to be a millionaire, you got to have these 7 streams of income,
Income.
and you
Yeah.
just start throwing stuff at the wall because I got to get 7 streams, and that's not
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not true at all.
Yeah.
You got to do one thing very well,
Very good. Yep.
and that one thing is what you need to focus on.
And
And so
consistently. I'm
and
sorry, I didn't mean to
consistently.
interrupt you.
Right, but you're right, consistently. And
Mm.
I started throwing all these things against the wall, and stuff was starting to fall because I can't do everything. You got 24 hours in a day, and I realized I can't do social media. I can't come up with episodes. I can't do editing. I can't do and be a husband and a father on the same time. I can't do all of those things. So every time you add something, you got to take something away. And so I realized that I needed to scale back in order to grow the proper way. So let's focus on the one thing that we do very well, and let's grow that, and
Yeah.
let's make that a success, the biggest success it can be.
So we're gonna wrap up here, but I want to call in something here. I thank you all, right? Because like the fact of the matter is there's no like linear right way to do these things. And it's like,
No.
we're now at the place of like, I gotta scale back. But this also came from a part of the earlier in the conversation where it's like download, fast action, like go with it,
Right.
right? And so sometimes you take fast action, there's a bunch of different things going around, and then you're like, okay, great, I'm gonna bring it in. I actually think that that's something I like for me, I want to just like kind of bring in where I'm like, I think part of this is like it's not making mistakes. It's not even getting like going like Dominique, like I ended up holding my chest when you started talking because I felt myself give myself grace when you started saying something. There was something you were saying where I was like, oh, I'm actually being hard on myself right now. And
Mhm.
there's something you said that just like I just felt myself like relax a little bit and be like, oh wait, this is part of it. Like you gotta go, you gotta do things to know what works for you, what doesn't. And you got, and like, and I can imagine about the perfect schedule, the perfect, all this stuff there. But it isn't until I actually send out an email to someone and say, like, this, I don't even want to come on my podcast. Otherwise, I just spend all this time going back to your point, Les, like, I bought all this equipment, but there's no one to use it on, you know?
Right.
Right.
And so, like, and even in the niche conversation, I think it all kind of sits down where it's like, a lot of times we try and save people time by being like, just get this part right because it was painful not having it right to start out with. But it's like, you may not know what it is until you actually have the experience. And I think that's right,
Mm.
right? Like, as I'm talking to y'all, I realized that I saw pulling back or like retooling as, oh, I messed up. But it's actually
No.
like, oh, you're doing exactly right. That, like your success is through that, not in the opposite direction, but it's
Mhm.
actually through that. It's in the doing and finding out what works, what doesn't, what's too much, what's not.
Yeah.
Like and then rebuilding for that new foundation for what you want.
Yes.
That's where
Yes.
it comes in. So I
Right.
want to bring all this in because it like there's some elements of these things that feel like they're contradictory, and at the same time, I'm like, oh no, they're all saying the same thing. Get started, get moving, get
Mhm.
data, like iterate based on that data. Go ahead, pull back, make a brand new foundation for something bigger, so on and so forth, and just keep going. Like, last
Mhm.
comments on
That
that, and then
that's the perfect wrap up
It
because
is perfect.
you
Perfect.
you just
Yeah.
did the
Eloquently
synopsis of
put.
everything.
Yeah.
Yes,
Mhm.
because
okay. Did I just
it's
synthesize this?
yes, you did. You did right there
All
because
right.
what it really when you really think about it is we to be successful in anything that you do, you always have to still be coachable and
Yes.
willing to learn. Because
Yes.
if you sit there and you sit on the top and you think that you know it all and you got it all figured out, you're gonna fail.
Yep.
You're gonna fall. So to be able to be coachable and be able to learn and be able to adapt, that's the key thing. Like I said,
Yeah.
our show in the beginning was terrible.
Yeah. But we
And
learned. We
and we
adapted,
learned. And
you
yeah,
know, and we made
yeah,
something from nothing,
yeah.
you know. But that's just our story. But I'm sure there's a million others out there, you know. Don't give up on yourself.
Mhm. Yeah.
Well, we're going to wrap up our conversation here. I like to wrap up with two things. Where if you have to drop, go and drop. If you can stay on for a few minutes later, like I like to wrap up here. The way I like to wrap up is for us to each share an insight and a way that someone can continue down with you. Right.
Okay.
So basically, an insight and where can outliers go if they want to be more in your world. Right. To me, an insight is like we've been sharing things for other people up until this point. Now it's about how do we change? How did we grow as a result of this conversation? And you can say, I did not grow, and that's fine. You don't have to have an insight, but if you did, we'd love to hear it and then let us know how people can stay in your world. Dominique, why don't we start with you? Then we'll go to Russ.
Yeah. I don't think I'm going to fully realize how much I've grown from this conversation, but from the things have been said, the camaraderie of us men in here, it's something that I'm going to take back. As I said earlier, it's a part of me and a part of my character that I want to continue to grow and to be able to be open in any spaces and have conversations, especially with my fellow men. It's an insight that I'm going to continue to take and continue to give myself grace that, I'm doing the work and continuing to grow. And you can find me, on I'm out in the world. Look for me on Meetup, on Reddit, on YouTube, but always you can find me on my Growing Full Circle podcast and my website, Shadow Spiritual Guidance. The website is ssgjourney.com. There, you can find everything, how to connect with me, all the things that I'm doing. It's always growing. As we said before, I too have that perspective of always growing. There's no end, until I no longer breathe. So for me, it's all about growth and finding love and accepting change as it comes. So if you want to continue to grow as well, I invite you to my spaces where we can grow together.
Thank you so much, Dominique. Thank you, thank you. Russ, how about you?
For me, it's not being complacent, and that was my biggest area. I had, as I mentioned earlier, it was staying coachable and willing to learn. and learn new techniques, and being open to criticism, and listening to advice and say, hey, you can do this a little better, or this is how you do this, and then being able to ask people that are ahead of me and learn from them as well on different techniques. So that was the main thing for me, is being coachable. For me, the show, you can follow the show at themanspacepodcast.com. You can find the show on Instagram and YouTube at Manspace Nat1. That's the Manspace Nation. So Manspace Nat1 is our Instagram and YouTube home. And then I am under I am Russ _ the Manspace Podcast on Instagram.
Thank you. And then let's bring us home, please.
Perfect. Well, all I can say is never give up. Okay. Fail, 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 but also means retry, retry, retry. As long as you continue to do something to move forward, you'll never fall all the way completely back. So move forward. Sometimes it's good to take it slow, right? Because you have to, but never stop. Never stop. You can reach me at Less _ the Manspace Podcast on Instagram and all of the socials that Russ said already. But just keep moving forward.
And here it is, y'all. Thank you for moving forward with me. Thank you for spending the time here, sharing your experience, sharing your soul, your heart, and just like being real with us here. It's been an enjoyable conversation, and more than anything else, I think we've all been uplifted and up-leveled as a result of it. All right. So yeah, absolutely. All right. Outliers. Till the next time we talk. Be you on purpose. Journey on.